Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Race Week and my updated F1 2023 predictions, because the previous one, well, I'll discuss the previous one. I'll leave an eye thing if you want to go and watch that previous one I did on the 1st of February. A lot has changed since the 1st of February. In F1 and around the world. So we'll start with the drivers and then the calendar. I've actually done a little bit of research for the calendar to see what's available, because there are obviously people selling tickets left, right and centre for it. But we'll start with Red Bull, and I said it at the start that Perez and Verstappen would stay, and since I can't remember if soon after or since that episode on the 1st of February, Perez of course signed for next year alongside Verstappen. Now, whether or not Perez stays beyond that, we'll have to wait and see. Depends on Gasly, depends on Tsunoda as well, because he's having a great time of the season. This season, Mercedes. Oh dear! I predicted Lewis Hamilton would retire at the end of 2022. How wrong I was. I think that Lewis is going to keep going now. There's mention that he could get to 400 Grand Prix starts. Lewis is going to keep going. Whether or not he does that all for Mercedes, I don't know. Toto Wolff, big news, of course, that sort of went under the radar. But Toto Wolff is leaving Mercedes to manage Maserati's Formula E team. So that's huge for Mercedes. They've got to find someone that can step up into that Toto Wolff role and take on Christian Horner. There are a few people available. I previously had Gasly alongside Russell because we didn't know what Gasly's contract was at the time. We now know that he's signed a deal with Alfa Tauri for next season, which is the last of the deal, I think. So Gasly probably will walk next season, but we'll come to Alfa Tauri later. As well, and he's not had a great season. He's not had the best of seasons either. Obviously, Russell, not quite the future prodigy that they wanted him to be. He has done very well to be consistently in the top 5, but for Mercedes, can he make that extra step up, take on Lewis Hamilton and chance for race wins? So far, he's been beaten in the last couple of races by Hamilton, who's now starting to gather the momentum in that Mercedes car. Be interesting to see how the second half of the season goes with those new adjusted regulations as well. Ferrari, Sainz and Leclerc. I think Sainz also was uncontracted at the time of the previous video. I don't see him moving. To be honest, Sainz and Leclerc could be there long term if Ferrari stop messing up their strategies, because they have the car, they have the pace, they just need reliability and strategies. Yes, there's been a couple of mistakes from Leclerc and Sainz, but this is a long-term project that they're building. It'll be the 3rd season next year that those two have been together in the same team. McLaren. Who saw Daniel Ricciardo's departure from McLaren? Well, potential departure, as I say. He's not technically gone yet. McLaren is still yet to pay out that $21 million, whatever it is that he wants paying out. But it's likely that Ricciardo will be departing at the end of the season. I previously thought that he'd be staying, but it seems that McLaren are getting ready to invest long term in Piastri and Norris, which is huge for them, because that means if they've got the driver lineup, they now need to develop the car. If they get those two on long-term contract, Norris is already on a long-term contract. Piastri needs to be probably will be on a multi-year contract. If they get those two working together, then they just need to ensure that the car is at a place where they can, start moving closer to the top three teams. That's the next step up for McLaren, as well. Alpine. Now, I'm not gonna lie. They're in a bit of a tight place, Alpine. Partly because their driver academy is in a shocking state at the moment. Jack Doohan is a member of their academy, but he's not ready to be making that step up to F1 yet, despite the fact he won or took pole, I can't remember, in the opening race in F2. Victor Martins is another person in the Alpine academy, but he's in F3, and he's already 21. And he's second in the F3 standings as it stands, as well. So they're not really looking for to promote anyone. They were going to promote Piastri. That was the idea, them spending that money. And of course now they're suing Piastri and McLaren for that money back, as well. So for Alpine, well, we know Ocon's going to be there, and whatever capacity he is, Ocon will strive to be team leader. Even if Ricciardo comes back, which is a possibility, as well. Danny Rick could decide to join Alpine. Another name that's also been rumoured, however, and one more likely, just in case Ocon gets a call by Mercedes at some point, even though Wolff isn't there anymore. I imagine he's got other Mercedes contacts, and he was previously Mercedes junior driver. They could choose to ask him to partner Russell when Hamilton eventually retires, or they could go elsewhere. I'll come back to that shortly, as well. But alongside him, yes, possibly Ricciardo. I think I previously stated that I thought Alonso would retire. Turns out it'd be Vettel, not Alonso. Got that wrong. And I had Piastri alongside because I didn't foresee that Piastri would say no to Alpine and move to McLaren, to be confirmed. But Schumacher. Now, I don't think Mick, he had a very slow start to the season, but recently he's actually he scored some points. He's finally got that off his chest, that obstacle away from him. Now he needs to start being more consistent and try and beating Magnussen, but he's not really. Rumours are that Ferrari aren't impressed and are ready to dump him out of the Haas team, as well. But apparently he's followed Laurent Rossi on Instagram, which everyone presumes that's a sign that he will be moving to Alpine, which wouldn't be a bad move for Mick, especially Alpine. They're a midfield team, they're fighting for 4th place, they're in a similar position to McLaren. If they can get the lineup confirmed, then they can start working with the drivers on developing the car long term. Alpha Tauri next. I previously thought that they'd be changing their drivers for F1 2023, and I had Albon and Hauger. Now Hauger is disappointed. Despite winning a couple of races in F2, he's not ready, clearly not ready for F1. Obviously Vips has departed after being an idiot and a twat. So, yes, and Albon's committed to Williams now. So I think we know that Gasly's staying on, and I think it's only a matter of time before Tsunoda renews his contract. Now, long term, I have a sneaky little suspicion that AlphaTauri in the future are preparing Tsunoda, not Gasly, to replace Perez at Red Bull. Tsunoda, he's had a good season. He's beaten Gasly in more races than he did last season. Gasly hasn't had a good season apart from that one 4th or 5th place that he got. I can't remember where earlier in the season. He's not had a great season. And Tsunoda will be looking. He needs to be a bit more consistent and then Red Bull will probably take a liking to him. as well. But interesting to see if what he can do is if Gasly were to leave and somebody else, a junior driver like Hauger, were to come in, whether be able to take on that role as team leader effectively and develop the car in a place that they want. But that's what I think long term for Red Bull and Alpha Tauri. Aston Martin, we already know it's going to be Alonso and Stroll. I previously had Vettel and Stroll as well. So yes, I didn't foresee Vettel's retirement. I thought it would be he'd be going on for a few more years, but Seb has come to the decision that it's time to step aside and be replaced by his old rival. Williams have now committed to Albon, which is a good move for them because Alex has had a good season, I want to say, but they are the slowest team on the grid by a mile. They've only scored 3 points, and a couple of them due to Albon's punchiness. They need to develop that car. The problem is that there's rumours flying about that they were going to have Piastri on board for 2023. Now, I previously had in these two seats Latifi and Logan Sargent. Now, Logan Sargent, I should point out, is a Donald Trump supporter, apparently. As well, I do think that there's a three-way tie for the seat between Latifi, Sargent, and Drugovich. Now, depending on which one of them goes, depends in that second seat, depends on Mercedes, because Frederick Vesti is Mercedes' junior driver. He's 6th in F2, so he's having a good season. It's not his first season in F2, I don't think, or he's done some races before in F2 prior to this season as well. But he's all of a sudden he's getting there. He could probably do it another season in F2 before making that jump to F1. But thinking about it, who would you be able to get away with moving out of the team, especially if Albon's on a multi-year contract with the team, possibly 2-3 years? The second seat is more likely in that position if Mercedes want Williams to still be that have that junior seat available for them for when Vesti does make that step up into F1. It would make a little bit more sense to keep Latifi, the man who they can get rid of pretty much like this, especially just literally look at him season per season contract, as opposed to the other two people, Logan Sargent, and I've also got the current F2 champion leader, Felipe Drugovich as well, who's not connected with any F1 outfit. Drugovich has done well, second season F2. He probably deserves that step up to F1 as well. So that's definitely something to be interested in. And then Alfa Romeo, I've got Bottas and Porsche, which is unchanged. Porsche has since come out and said he's not staying in F2 next year. I think Alfa Romeo have got more than enough sponsors to get rid of Zhou as well. And Theo's he's second, I think, in the chat standings. No, about time he made that step up to F1. Otherwise, he's going to be spending a year on the sidelines waiting for Zhou to step aside. And Haas, Magnussen's already confirmed for next year because he had that multi-year contract that he signed as well. Previously, this was the previous episode was recorded before Russia decided to invade Ukraine. So I had the all money bags pairing of Matitwat and Zhou. Now, I'm not counting out Zhou completely from Haas, but if Ferrari still have influence over that seat, a bit like what they did at Alfa Romeo, where they get to choose one of the seats now. Especially the fact that a lot of ex-Ferrari personnel are now at Haas, then they could choose Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi is getting an outing in that car as well for 2 FP2 sessions, Italy and the United States Grand Prix, which, you know, he hasn't had a great season of Formula E. He finished second to bottom by some bloke, or bottom of the standings, I can't remember what, but, you know, he's although he's in one of the worst cars in F Formula E, there's no excuse really for not even performing his less experienced teammate Sergio Setta Camara in that team. But still, Giovinazzi would make a good seat warmer for whoever Ferrari decides to be their next prodigy as well. Zhou Guanyu is another person that's also linked, especially if Haas need money. And also linked with that seat is Daniel Ricciardo. My money's on Giovinazzi. Magnussen and Giovinazzi would make a good pairing, especially Giovinazzi's FP3 appearances last year. And if Haas continue to develop that car, then it would be a good move for them. So let's move to the calendar. Now, I'll say two. One of the dates has already been confirmed. That's Australia, the 2nd of April, which is a week earlier this year. And the second date, Las Vegas, has been leaked apparently, being the 18th of November. So, if that is the case, then here's what I think the calendar will look like. Starting with Bahrain on the 12th of March, a week earlier. We've got 2 more races, so it makes sense. As well, double header with Saudi Arabia a week later, and then they'll come to Australia, so that's bits unchanged. Then they go to South Africa. Now, having South Africa after Australia sorts of makes sense because, they're on the way back to either Europe or Miami on the west coast of America as well. But, there's a big break. There's 5 weekends between where I think Australia and Miami. That's more than enough time to sort things out for a South African Grand Prix as well. Spain, then the 21st of May. Monaco, I've got on the end of May, which apparently is out of contract, and I've had a look, and they're not selling tickets for it. But of all the tracks that are currently out of contract, whether it's 5 of them, Mexico City, Austria, Monaco, France, and Belgium, Monaco, Mexico City, and Austria, they're more likely to renew the contract. Even though Monaco aren't selling tickets at the moment, I think that Monaco's the more likely to be there over Spa. If they can't get South Africa, then there's obviously plenty of time to move Miami up and fit Belgium in. But knowing F1, and despite the fact they said we're going to have a sustainable calendar, that's clearly not the case as well. Then obviously got Azerbaijan and Canada back to back as they were this year. So again, still not sustainable there. Now apparently, what I've been able to find out, Austria and Silverstone might be the other way around next year. Austria is out of contracts, but their tickets are on sale for that. So I presume that's just a formality that they're in the final stages of agreeing that contract. And the race will go ahead and they're just deciding on length or fee or something or other about that as well. Then they've put after Silverstone, not the French Grand Prix, because that's being axed, and we'll put Imola, which has a contract there. Going to be interesting to see how that does in July, because it's historically been a lot earlier in the calendar as well. Then we got Hungary at the end of July, and then we have this mid-season break, and then we come to the Netherlands. Apparently Belgium is being axed, and there'll just be a double header between the Netherlands and Italy for next year. That's the rumours that are flying about. We'll have to wait and see. And then I've got Singapore in sort of filling that void between, where the Russian Grand Prix used to be in the middle of September, and then Japan, which is pretty much the same date as was this year. China, I've got on the 8th of October. Apparently, China has asked for a October date, and then we've got United States Grand Prix and the Mexico City Grand Prix. Again, Mexico is apparently out of contract, but tickets, like Austria, are on sale for that. Then we got Brazil and Las Vegas as a double header sort of thing, and then we'll finish off Qatar and Abu Dhabi. When the leaks about Las Vegas, there was rumours that Las Vegas will be the penultimate Grand Prix of the season, with a double header against Abu Dhabi, but Qatar doesn't fit with the Australia date. Otherwise, I'd have to Qatar at the start of the season, like a triple header or something, and that just doesn't work with the Australia date. So I think that Las Vegas will not be the penultimate round of the season. And I think Qatar and Abu Dhabi both in December, like we had a couple of years ago. So yes, that's where I'm going to leave it today's episode of Race Week. If you have enjoyed, leave a like, and of course subscribe if you're new to the channel. See plenty more episodes of Race Week as and when they come out, and other F1 gaming content as well. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments below as well. So until the next video then, I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your day, and goodbye.